The mug tipped before I even realized what she was saying. Scalding liquid burst across my lap, the burn cutting through thin cloth, steam rising like smoke from a fire. Porcelain shattered across the tile, and in the silence that followed, my daughter's voice sliced sharper than any heat. "Either give Evan your credit card or get out of my house. We're not your charity, Dad." Karen stood there, arms folded like a judge delivering sentence, while my grandson slouched behind her, eyes fixed on his phone, asking for $6,000 as if it were his birthright. The pain in my legs was nothing compared to the pain in my chest. I had faced real flames in my 30 years as a firefighter, but never contempt like this. Her words landed heavy, rehearsed, as if she had been preparing to erase me. She reminded me of the hip surgery I couldn't have survived without her help, reminded me of the bills she had managed. She called my presence a debt. When I refused, her smirk deepened. "Then you'll be gone by sunset." I stood slowly, each step down the hallway dragging a piece of my old life with it. The family photographs on the wall stared as I passed, Karen missing her front tooth, Karen at her graduation, her late mother smiling beside us. Somewhere between those frames, and this moment my daughter had turned me into a burden, but what she mistook for surrender was something else entirely, a promise forming inside me. The guest room smelled of antiseptic and detergent. My suitcase, dusty but waiting, came down from the closet shelf. I packed slowly, methodically, every shirt folded with the care of a man preparing for war rather than travel. In the drawer, I found the envelope I had hidden months ago. Birth certificate, insurance cards, bank routing slip. Some part of me must have always known this day would come. Then I found the old leather pouch, my late wife's pearl ring glinting faintly in my palm. "Mary," I whispered to the empty room, "you'd know what to do." A tear threatened, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't time for tears. Under the bed, my hand brushed against a notebook. I pulled it free, pages filled with grocery, lists and idle scribbles until the very last sheet, numbers, account numbers, mine. Karen had taken my card, but she hadn't taken this. My pulse steadied. From the living room came the sound of laughter, hers, Evan's, the glow of a life I no longer belonged to. I zipped the suitcase shut, the sound final as a slammed door. I was not broken. I was not discarded. I was awake, and I had proof. That night I dialed an old friend. Mark, once my neighbor, now a lawyer, answered with the same steady voice I remembered from firehouse nights. I told him everything. His silence was not pity. It was calculation. "Stay where you are," he said. "I'll come." At his dining table, under the halo of a single lamp, I laid out the printouts, the notebook, the evidence of months of theft disguised as care. He read each line slowly, glasses sliding down his nose. Streaming services, electronics, in-game, charges. "None of this is yours." He circled the entries. "This is exploitation, Rich. Plain and simple." He called in favors. A fraud investigator, a county recorder, even a senior protection officer who slid her badge across the table without ceremony. Together we built the case brick by brick. Unauthorized email forwarding, diverted mail, bills, paid from my pension, signatures that weren't mine. Every sheet of paper was a match, and we were stacking them for the fire to come. By the time I signed the revocation forms and moved my untouched disability fund to a new credit union account, I was no longer a man packing a suitcase. I was a man with evidence, and evidence doesn't need to shout. It only needs to exist. The courthouse smelled of old wood and sweat, the kind of place where families come to break apart. I walked in wearing my old navy blazer, brass buttons polished until they caught the light. Wanted no one to mistake me for a frail man being erased. Across the aisle sat Karen and her husband, Mark. She kept her eyes down, her hands clenched. He wore a pressed suit, but sweat darkened his collar. Evan sat beside me, his backpack on his lap, his eyes wide. I wanted him to see everything with his own eyes. The trial unfolded without drama. My lawyer spread the papers across the table, like pieces of a puzzle that only fit one way: forged signatures, diverted funds, fraudulent refinances. Mark's lawyer tried to paint me as stubborn, heartless, a father who refused to help. But the evidence was heavier than any speech. When the judge's gavel struck, the sound was final. Fraud, forgery, foreclosure to proceed, liability on Mark Davis and Karen Davis, restitution required. Karen gasped, covering her mouth. Mark's shoulders collapsed. Evan glanced at me, a storm of relief and sorrow on his young face. My daughter finally looked up, her voice trembling. "Dad, is this what you wanted?" I shook my head slowly. "No, Karen. I wanted honesty. I wanted to sit at your table. You chose contempt, and contempt always collects its debt." The weeks that followed were quieter, but not peaceful. Karen and Mark's perfect facade collapsed, arguments spilling onto the front lawn, debts chasing Mark until he fled town in disgrace. Karen's pride fractured. One evening, she knocked at my apartment door, her voice stripped of rehearsed lines. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't know where else to go." I let her in. Not as forgiveness, not yet, but as recognition. Beneath, the contempt still lived the girl I had once carried on my shoulders. Evan stayed often, helping me with small repairs, asking questions about my past. One evening he asked, "Grandpa, why didn't you just give them the card? Wouldn't it have been easier?" I set down my tools and met his eyes. "Because, Evan, dignity once surrendered can never be bought back. And dignity is worth more than money." He nodded, understanding more than his years should allow. Months later, Karen returned again. Plain clothes, no defenses. "Dad," she said quietly, "I'm leaving Mark. I see it now. Contempt cost me everything. I don't want to pay that price anymore." I studied her face. "Then prove it. Build something better with Evan. I'll be here, but I won't rescue you again." That night, we ate dinner together. 3 generations at one table. Fragile, but real. I raised my glass of water. "Here's to new beginnings." Later, alone in my chair, I thought of the night the coffee scalded my legs. That burn had faded, but the promise I made to myself that night remained. I would not be erased, and in the end, I wasn't. Because contempt, no matter how sharp, always comes with a cost. And I had made sure it was paid in full.